deep voice. I am a marathoner. So it reverberates.
Welcome, Team OLA. Today we have Father Steve Bauer with us today. Super excited to have him with us. He's a veteran runner, a veteran marathoner. Father Steve, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you. As you heard, I'm Father Steve Bauer. I've been with Team OLA from the very beginning, even before it was an official team. I was helping Sister Stephanie when she was just a postulant, kind of, get into the race, and I've just loved it ever since. And I've done 7 Chicago marathons and one other, and just love being out there.
So I can imagine that if you've had 7 marathons, you have some pretty interesting stories.
Yes.
Why don't you share a few with us?
So, well, people ask if I run wearing my collar or anything. I did a 5K once wearing my cassock, but that was only 5K, and that was difficult. But in the marathon, I just wear the Team OLA shirt, and on my bib, I have a copy of. I have this from last year. I always put my name on it, although it probably looks backwards on the screen, but with the camera.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
But as I was running, there's always people that cheer you on when they see you, and they some of them say, "Go, Father Steve, great!" But my favorite was running, and somebody said, "You're doing this for Steve. He's going to be so proud of you." They misread Father. Sometimes people's a Dr. Steve, things like, because they just get a glance of it as you're running past, and they're trying to be supportive. But I thought that was funny. You're doing this for Steve. He's going to be so proud of you.
Oh gosh. So you've run 6 or 7 marathons. What that's a lot of commitment on your part. How has it impacted you to become a marathoner and to continue to be a marathoner? Talk about some of the things you've learned through the process.
One of the things that I learned, I know when I first started getting into distance running, I would put my headphones on and I'd just go out there with my playlist. And I thought that was cool because lots of people were doing that. Then one day my battery ran out and was like, and then and I actually discovered that I preferred running without music, because then I could be more in touch with my thoughts, with God. It was more of a spiritual experience, especially going long. It was just a short little run, not so much, but the long runs, to do those with just with yourself and the Lord, it just felt a lot more spiritual. And after the run, I always felt like this interior peace, and that was a beautiful experience. It was a beautiful thing that I learned, in training for my first marathon. And ever since, I don't ever use music now. Just being out there is enough.
So you'll run all your training runs. Do you you don't use music at all?
No.
Do you have a mantra? Do you pray? Like, how do you kind of keep your mind occupied? Do you have structure around it, or what do you do?
Well, actually, a lot of times what I'll do, especially during the week, what I'll do is I'll take a look at the readings for Mass for Sunday. And then when I go out and run, I'll just kind of let them percolate in my mind. And sometimes when I'm out there, my homily just kind of starts forming. And when I come back, I got to grab a pen and get writing.
Oh, that's cool. That's excellent. I'll also let some of our fellow pastors know that that's a great inspiration. To get running, get them moving, right? It could be interesting to see how that plays out. So we've obviously been in multiple or different states of lockdown, quarantine, isolation, kind of this unusual times. What have you learned about yourself during this time, and what have you learned about the community at large in the world?
It's interesting being in the lockdown. A lot of people are isolated, they're inside, and they feel alone, they feel separated. And that's understandable when you feel like you're surrounded by four walls. But when I have gone out running during the quarantine, during the pandemic, I feel free. I feel more myself. I feel, ironically, even though I'm running by myself, I feel more connected. And I think that connection is to God. Because as I said, running for me can be real spiritual, especially if I've got some intentions or things I'm praying or working on my homily. And so so running never makes me feel alone. I
Hmm.
always feel connected.
What have you learned about the community? You're a pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk
Yes.
to me about your community and what you've learned about people in general.
So I'm at St. Alphonsus Parish on the north side of Chicago, and it's a big parish and lots of people that are normally here. But what I've learned uh, is that several things. First, people have a desire. They when they can't be socially connected, they really crave it. But then also, kind of the other side of that is sometimes people are uncomfortable with isolation, with solitude. And solitude is different than loneliness. And I think trying to clarify that distinction, because solitude is realizing that you're there, but heaven is there as well, and that you have a place there. Um, Isolation or loneliness is a disconnect, but solitude is actually a connection. But it's just not a worldly connection. It's not an external earthly connection. It's a heavenly one. And I think if people don't get that, then they feel the isolation and loneliness. But trying to talk to people to lead them to that awareness that solitude can bring you closer to God.
That's beautiful. That is, a lot of us, do have unusual situations. So that's very calming in a lot of ways to know that we have that. So do you have any particular goals for this marathon? I understand that there might be a change of plans. So what can you tell us about your goals and the plans?
Well, I used to run for a time, but actually it was a few years back. I had a surgery on my Achilles tendon. And so now my goal is just being out there and just running smooth and steady and finishing. Because that is, I realize now just the beauty of crossing the finish line, which a few years ago didn't seem like it would be ever possible again. So last year was my first year back after that surgery. And so it was just a victory to really be out there, and time doesn't matter. And so the medal was beautiful. And actually, the inscription on the medal from last year when you finished, on the bottom it said, "I am a marathoner." And I loved that. It just, because there's always a slogan, but I mean, and when you read that, you have to say it with a deep voice, "I am a marathoner," so it reverberates. Because there's because it's not about the time. It's not it's the accomplishment, and especially when you're doing it for Team OLA, for a purpose, you realize how much you're helping them, and just what an accomplishment it is for people who are in difficult situations in their neighborhood, who come there, and just like their big accomplishment is, I've got food for a week now. And it really helps put things in perspective. Those who are gifted athletes and who can achieve a time, that's awesome. And that was maybe my mindset several years ago, but now it's simplified and maybe purified in that.
Yeah, that's it is an accomplishment, and I love the "I am a marathoner" mantra. And we have many first timers, so that's pretty exciting. Any words of advice for the first timers out there that you can offer?
Yes. After about mile 16, 17, don't listen to yourself. Because your brain will try to talk you out of what you're doing. And so you just have to know your game plan, stick to it. But really, I think if, you stick with the training and realize that there's something about being out there on the day of the run, that the day of the race, that it gives you, gives you extra grace, extra blessings, because, God has brought you to this team for a reason. And you might not recognize it during training. You might not recognize it, when you're deep in the race and the mile, you're mile 19 or 21 or 20, but sometimes it's like after it's all done, you realize what the victory is, and it might not be what you expect. But in hindsight, you see it, just like, wow, that was cool. Thank you, Lord, for letting me do this.
Yeah, this year in particular will be, I assume a lot of folks will have that profound moment in a whole different context. So that's pretty amazing for folks. I've run twice, and I can absolutely agree with you on that. That journey is pretty cool. Well, Father Steve, thank you for being here with us today. We're excited for October. We're excited for the training, and look forward to all the fundraising, because really, to your point, it's about the mission, and it's about, spreading the love of God, and through the pantry, through the mission, through the Franciscans. It's just amazing. So thank you again for being with me.
You're very welcome. It's a delight. And thank you to all the prayer team that's out there supporting us runners, because I know many times we rely on the grace of their prayers to help us in those long runs and those late miles of the race.
Thank you.